Hi, guys. Welcome back to Chaos Makes Magic. I am so happy to have you here. If it is your first time listening, welcome. And if it is not your first time, welcome back. I have been feeling so much pressure lately to just be moving really quickly. Of course, we are in a new year, and with that just comes a lot of that societal pressure to get going, to get after your goals and do the things and to hustle and push and all of that. Yet we are still in the middle of winter. And I think that the new year is so beautiful. I think that that is a beautiful new beginning. But of course, as probably many of you know, we also have the lunar new year and then the astrological new year. Is that what that one is called? Not an expert. But we just have these next couple of months full of new beginnings. And right now, we really are still in that liminal space, in that transformative space. And so with that comes a lot of unknown. And I think that a lot of us right now are kind of feeling that. Maybe we are having some visions or ideas or things come through, but then it almost feels difficult to fully act on them. Or maybe you don't have those ideas, and that's okay too. And just very much so still in that unknown. And it can be confusing sometimes, and especially the winter time can really pull you under. And I think part of this too is just that, again, that societal conditioning. We are taught to always be going and doing and pushing and forcing and all of that. And so winter can feel really uncomfortable because naturally winter just pulls us inward and forces us to look at what needs to shift, what needs to transform, what needs to be shed and let go of and transmuted and alchemized and all of that. So I did episode 3 about Persephone, and I got a lot of really good feedback on that episode. You guys seem to really like just the way that I spoke about goddesses and how to kind of work with them and integrate that energy into your everyday life. And as a reminder, just there are so many different ways to work with goddesses and so many different ways to even view them and see them. And I think that it's beautiful to just take what resonates and leave the rest and do it in a way that feels true and authentic to you. And I really like to work with goddesses as an aspect of my being, an aspect of my psyche, but I also do still view them as in something outside of myself as well. But in this episode, we are going to talk about another goddess who is connected to Persephone and who is just a very powerful and potent force to work with when you are in this unknown or transformative time or in that liminal space or void. But before we get started, as always, please share, subscribe, all the things. Share this with other women in your life that you think would benefit from it. And of course, when you subscribe, then you're notified every time that I drop a new episode. So the goddess that we are going to be talking about in this episode, clearly you probably actually know from the title of this, but we're going to be talking about Hecate. And she is a dark goddess who honestly has been demonized, but haven't they all? And she's really just a very, very powerful, nurturing archetype or goddess to work with. And we'll get into her mythology just a little bit and then kind of move into signs that you might be called to work with her and then how to actually work with that energy. So this episode will be somewhat similar to the Persephone episode, just revolved around Hecate. And of course, you can go back to the Persephone episode, which is episode 3, if you have not watched that one yet, and really just see what resonates from both of these. And again, they are very connected, which I'll get into with the mythology, but both very, very beautiful, powerful, dark, feminine energies to work with. Once you begin to really work with these and start to really embody their power and characteristics and all of that, you begin to really awaken that dark feminine within you and really begin to feel that moving through you. And of course, in the last episode, we talked a lot about the dark feminine and really awakening that. So this is just going to deepen into that. So, Hecate is a Greek goddess, and she is the daughter of Perses and Asteria. And Zeus honored Hecate and gave her dominion over the earth, sky, and sea. And so that was very representative of this like feminine power that she held. Hecate is oftentimes depicted as the triple goddess, representing the maiden, mother, and crone, but she is most embodied in the crone archetype. And we'll kind of get into that. But the maiden, mother, and crone are all feminine archetypes that just represent different parts of the the cycle of life. So the maiden, of course, is that like younger virgin energy, very much so explorative and curious and just trying new things and really like going out of the box to become the woman that she is meant to become. And then the mother, of course, is embodied as like exactly that, the mother, the version of you that births things into existence, that actually brings things into form. And then the crone is that older, wise woman version of yourself who is deeply intuitive, mysterious, like truly has gone through all of those cycles of life and now holds all of that wisdom to move her forward, to guide others. So Hecate is the goddess of crossroads, feminine mysteries, witchcraft, magic, intuition, and protection. And so, because of all of that, you can see why she's most likely been demonized by society, because those are all very much so dark feminine aspects that aren't as widely accepted societally. Of course, they are becoming more widely accepted because women are embodying them and like really stepping into their power. And so, there's truly no choice other than to accept that. But she is a force that exists in liminal spaces between death and rebirth. And she was known to guide souls into and out of the world. And she is the torchbearer who illuminates the path forward for you to walk. So if we really think about being in the unknown, being in this liminal transformative space, that is like Hecate's energy is the guiding force. Like she is the one that guides you through that. She doesn't give you the answers. That's you, but she guides you on that path and on your next step forward. She essentially is just willing to travel where many people don't. And again, like very much so associated with death, which is very taboo in our society and something that hasn't necessarily been honored and revered in the ways that it previously was. And of course, when we talk about death, like we're typically talking about that metaphorical death that we move through. And that's just the cycle of life, of moving through this death and rebirth process and growing and expanding and then decaying and releasing and so on and so forth. So Hecate is really well known in the story of Persephone being abducted into the underworld. And this is because Hecate is known to have been like the torchbearer, the one who lit the way for Demeter, which she is Persephone's mom. And so she helped Demeter like transmute and alchemize her grief while Persephone was missing. And this was really important because Demeter is the goddess responsible for harvest and fertility. So when Persephone went missing, like nothing was growing on Earth and like there weren't the seasons necessarily. And so Hecate helped to find Persephone, helped guide Demeter back to find Persephone. And then that like restored harvest and harmony and fertility and everything on Earth. So without that, essentially the earth would be barren. And Hecate is also known as Persephone's guide as she moves between worlds. So of course we touched on how Hecate is known to guide souls into and out of the world. And so she was that for Persephone as Persephone moved between the underworld and here. Like, I don't even know what to call that. The upper world, the mid world. I know there's a word for it, but you guys get it. Hecate's energy is very protective, and she's the aspect of your psyche that whispers, you already know the way. So again, if we think about being in this liminal space, the space of the unknown, not knowing how to move forward, like she is that aspect of you, that crone energy archetype within you that does know the way. And so that's why it's really important to tap into her energy and work with her energy when you're in this space of the unknown, because that helps you to find that answer within you and move forward. I actually did a practice in the spiral path with Hecate's energy and really just like going into the body and finding that answer. And what I just kept repeating in that was that you do not need to know 10 steps ahead. Like you literally just need to know one next step, and that is going to get you closer and closer to where you are meant to go. But oftentimes, especially in this unknown space and when we're kind of just like floating out in the void, we want to figure it all out. Like our minds resort to that, and that's what feels safe because we are in that void. We're in that unknown. We have no clue what the fuck is going on sometimes. And so, in order to feel safe and find safety, of course, our minds are trying to figure out the entire path ahead when in reality, that isn't what we need in that moment. And as I kind of mentioned before, like she doesn't choose for you. She just illuminates what is present within you and then guides you towards those answers. A lot of people know of her as the goddess of death. And again, back to her being demonized, like she is very much so associated with death, but she is more so a goddess of guidance and like ensuring that you don't travel alone through the darkness or through that in between state. It's really crazy actually to think about so much of this because if we're thinking about death and her being the goddess of death and just all of this misinformation that we have been fed and like things even lost in translation as well. I mean, it of course has happened in so many different areas of history, including the Bible. That's a really big one. But I think that our like modern day society, and especially, I mean, just with the rise of the patriarchy, like death became feared, or just like those rites and initiations through that death and rebirth process were demonized and erased. And yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting because I'm like, I could talk about death all day long. And I know that that's just like me going through this like metaphorical death portal. But sometimes I'm like, I use that term a lot. So I know you guys get it. And then back to her being the triple goddess. So I mentioned that she's most embodied in the crone archetype because she has walked that path of maiden, mother, and then into crone. And her power comes from allowing us again to tap into that crone energy within us. And that is the aspect of us that does know the answers, that does know the next step, and who holds all of the wisdom. And we can see ourselves moving through this cycle in so many different areas of our life and like different timelines as well. So I oftentimes relate it back to the menstrual cycle because that's like a very concrete way for women to move through that cycle of death and rebirth. And like we literally have that built in within our bodies. Naturally, we are alchemists and meant to move through that process. But outside of the menstrual cycle, you can also obviously work with the seasons of the earth. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to in this episode as well, with us being in winter. So that of course is that like crone energy and crone wisdom in the winter. Like we're meant to go inward. We're meant to kind of like figure out what needs to go, figure out what like wisdom we have to take forward with us, so on and so forth. And then you can also just obviously like intuitively tap into the cycles of your life. Like there might be a time in the summer where you're just like really going through it, and that's okay. Like just because it's a certain season doesn't mean that you have to necessarily go with what that season represents, but just moving in a way that feels flowy and not pushing it. Her embodiment of the crone is also very much so represented in her mythology with Persephone and Demeter. So, of course, Persephone being the maiden in that story, and then Demeter being the mother, and Hecate being the crone, who is, of course, like giving all her wisdom, helping to fix the situation and all of that. So Hecate's wisdom is really felt when you're shedding an old identity and standing on the edge of becoming something new. And that line in itself like just feels so powerful and potent for where so many of us are right now. Again, moving through winter, moving out of winter, and back to just like the numerology and the snake and the horse, moving from the snake to the horse this year. Like we really are shedding so much and moving into like an entirely new cycle. So this is just really potent energy right now for the collective. But if you are at a crossroads in life, if you are reclaiming your power, if you're awakening to your intuition or just deepening into it, or transmuting old pain, or beginning or deepening on your spiritual path. Those are all like beautiful signs that Hecate's energy is there with you, wanting to work with you, and that it is something that you should begin to work with and begin to embody in a way that resonates with you. Her energy really encourages you to walk a path that feels true to you, and that's really where the like intuitive and mysterious aspect comes in, because oftentimes we're on a path, and while it can be very true to us, like we might notice that there are some aspects of our path that aren't true to us. We're doing it because we think we have to, or because it's going to please somebody. And so that's really important to kind of key in on. And when you're in this space too, this in-between space, and the space of like shedding, but then also becoming, and really in that void space, your intuition might be tested in some ways. And it really is a time for you to be very discerning. And I think that it's just important to note that listening to your intuition is not always easy, and that's okay. Like your intuition, of course, is your guiding light, but sometimes it's going to ask you to make decisions that don't feel super easy to make, but they are for your highest good. But working with Hecate is just a beautiful way to deepen into that intuition and to just feel like comforted and nurtured almost. Like it is this very comforting, nurturing energy while you are going through those transformations and transitions, and while you're kind of experiencing the discomfort of that. And working with your intuition in this way too, and especially as you're moving through the unknown, like this really deepens you into a new level of self-trust. And of course, we're always expanding, always growing, always becoming. And this is just something that you're always going to meet on your journey. And you're going to, like, the more that you listen to your intuition and actually follow the guidance of that, the more that your self-trust expands. And that's going to be really important as you continue on your path forward. So some signs and symbolism for Hecate are keys, doorways, crossroads, black dogs. I always joke I have a black dog, and I am like, he was literally sent to me from Hecate. I feel that so heavily. The moon, especially the triple moon symbol, where it's like the moon in the middle and the two crescents on the side. And then colors like black, midnight blue, deep red, deep purple, and silver. And then crystals like obsidian, moonstone, smoky quartz, and black tourmaline. Oh, another one too that I really do associate with Hecate are crows. Like every time I see crows, I'm like, hi Hecate. And I know that's true for some other people as well. But one of the biggest teachings of Hecate is that she teaches you that you no longer need to ask for permission. And that again is really that test of using your intuition. Like you get to be anything and everything at once, and like you're the one paving that path forward. Like she is helping to illuminate that for you. And I think that this is a really strong energy for women who are just walking their own unique path. And there are so many women doing that right now, which is just the most beautiful thing. And it's something that I continue to recognize in myself too, is that there's a spider. That's another beautiful dark feminine symbol. So maybe that's Hecate with us too. I keep realizing with myself that I am just moving on a path that nobody else has necessarily done. Like, yes, there are ways that I can get guidance and mentorship and all of that, which I do, but there's also just things that I am creating and birthing into existence that are new, and that I really have to have that deep level of self-trust in order to continue to move forward. And it's just been shown on my entire path. And you guys, I have had such a journey of trusting myself and trusting my intuition, and it has not been easy. And I am thrown obstacles all the time. And I think that, gosh, I don't know, like years ago, maybe like 2020, 2021, whatever, 2022, like those were all moments and times where I knew that I wanted my own business. I was like, I know I want something, I just don't fully know what it is. But I always saw other women doing it, and they made it seem so easy. Like making all this money, it's so easy. Like you just have to show up and do it, and it's going to fall in your lap, blah, 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 blah. And I realized quickly that that wasn't true. And I think we're really moving away from that. But yeah, there's just been so many different obstacles. And I continue to just trust in myself and really sink into my intuition and figure out what my next step is. Like, what do I need to do? Just my one next step. And like, that's it. That's okay. And I think one of the biggest examples of me really trusting myself to do something was when I quit my corporate job, which I left in early 2024, and I had nothing lined up. Like I was burnt out. I was burnt the fuck out. I was in a car accident in 2020, went through so much treatment with that for years while working my corporate job 40 plus hours a week, and then ended up developing endometriosis and then going through all of that treatment while also working. And if you are somebody who does work a job like that and just something that is super demanding while you're also just going through different health issues, like it is really hard and taxing. And so I just got to a point where I was like, I just know I need to take the leap. Like I have no clue, no clue what is next. I have no clue how this is going to work out, how I'm going to like be taken care of. And I did it, and it's been a journey, you guys. It wasn't something where I just like did it and it just all worked out and all this money fell in my lap and all of that. Like it has been hard, and it has forced me to move through so much internally and move through so many of these death and rebirth cycles. But I'm happy with where I am. Like I'm certainly not where I thought that I would be by now, but I'm okay with that because I'm somewhere completely different. And that's because I've just allowed myself to really trust myself and trust that next step and trust my intuition and like really move from that place and not be afraid of the unknown. Another really beautiful thing with Hecate is that she really teaches the embodiment of feminine power and tapping into your wholeness. So again, that maiden mother crone energy, like that really is that feminine wholeness where you're embodying all of those aspects of the feminine and both the light and the dark feminine as well, and just that duality and how powerful that is, because oftentimes we as women think that we have to be one thing and we have to stick to that and we have to put ourselves in a box and we have to dim our light and whatever. And her energy really teaches you that you can be everything at once and that there's so much power in that as well, because when we're not doing that, we're just like hiding aspects of ourselves and we're not being fully true to ourselves. And then that's where we start to lose our power. So working with Hecate, of course, I kind of mentioned in the Persephone episode, and I think at the beginning of this one, I forget a lot, you guys. But working with goddesses, of course, can just look so many different ways and there's no right or wrong. So I really want you guys to just take what feels good and play around with it and see what works, see what doesn't work, and so on. But there's no right or wrong to this. But one really beautiful thing to do is build an altar dedicated to a specific goddess that you want to work with. So I did mention that in the Persephone episode. And if you feel called to both Persephone and Hecate, you could do an altar dedicated to both of them, or even with Demeter in there too, and like that maiden mother crone energy and really making it whole. Or you can just do one. Again, no right or wrong. It's like my favorite phrase in my work is that there's no right or wrong. You do you, boo. You do what you feel is best, okay? But for the altar, you can do crystals, the crystals that I mentioned earlier, like obsidian, moonstone, smoky quartz, black tourmaline, even amethyst too is a really beautiful crystal to put on your altar for Hecate, just because of that beautiful purple color, and also it is just very connected to intuition, which is very prevalent for Hecate. And then using different candles is always fun. You could probably find some wherever. I just go to like a local apothecary and they have all the colors, but purple, blue, black, silver, whatever you want. And then different objects too you can place on your altar, like keys, feathers. Crows, of course, are super significant. So if you like come across a crow feather, I want that. I actually, so it was so crazy. It was probably a couple of months ago. I was just sitting in meditation, kind of connecting to my ancestors, and I just kept being shown eagles. It was very, very much so like a powerful Native American ancestor. And I was shown eagles just like flying and flying. And I took my dog for a walk later that day and came across a big eagle feather. So maybe one of us will come across a crow feather. If you do, please let me know because that'd be cool. Other things for your altar, like moon objects, if you have any like moon statues, or again, just truly anything that you feel called to, anything that you like to have on your altar that you feel called to, and just using your intuition with it, being creative with it, and then just sitting with that altar. And like, even if you want to, like, I always love writing different things. That was kind of vague, but just writing different things and putting them on my altar, or writing, like, you could even do a letter to Hecate and put that on your altar, especially if you're feeling really lost right now. I think that would be a really beautiful thing to do. And just writing a letter and like asking for guidance and help illuminating that next step forward. And again, you guys, like, take what resonates, do what feels good for you. Another thing is meditations and visualizations. So I had mentioned that I added one to the spiral path for Hecate, and there's also a guide in there as well. And you can really do any sort of like meditation or visualization in any way that feels good for you. But if you're like wanting that structured container to connect to that energy, the one that I put in the spiral path is honestly really good. I know that there's also different songs and chants and stuff. So if you feel called to that, like literally just looking up on YouTube and finding different like Hecate songs or chants and kind of connecting to those as well. And if you're very much so visual and very much so able to connect to goddesses or different beings in that more psychic sense, that's a really beautiful thing to do. I've noticed Hecate coming through in a lot of ways, but I do have one guided practice that is around connecting from your womb into the earth and into the cosmos and kind of using like spirals with it. A lot of times when I guide us into our wombs, we'll be visualizing like a small ball of light in the center of our head and then allowing that to just drop down to really bring our awareness down. And the first time that I did it, it wasn't one ball of light. It was like three kind of circling each other. And what did I keep hearing? I wasn't hearing like triple. I was hearing like Trinity, I think. And so then I like kept seeing keys, all sorts of things. So even that too, just sitting in meditation, kind of like seeing what comes through. Again, no right or wrong. And like anything else, just integrating this wisdom into your everyday life. That truly is the most important thing with any of these practices. That truly is the most important thing for any of this work, like any type of healing work or like self-exploration or whatever you want to call it. The most important thing is to begin embodying and integrating this stuff into your everyday life. And if you don't, like, the same themes are just going to keep showing up for you. I'm laughing because there was a point where I every morning would do my morning meditation, and then I would pull some tarot cards, and I would get the same card over and over and over and over and over again. I'm sure you can relate. I mean, this happens to me with Oracle sometimes too. And I'm like, I literally fucking get it, you guys. And then, I'm like, okay, well, clearly I just still have more I need to integrate, which can be frustrating, but that's okay. We're in it together. And sometimes integrating this wisdom and guidance that you get, especially when we're working more with that like dark goddess and dark feminine aspect of ourselves, sometimes it can feel scary. Like I was talking earlier about listening to your intuition and working with your intuition and how that can be uncomfortable sometimes. But that's almost the point of working with these dark feminine archetypes and this dark feminine energy and dark goddesses is because these are initiation points. Like when we are called to these energies, we are being initiated into something bigger and more expansive. And that comes with discomfort, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. but you're not meant to stay stuck in it. And that's where I think Hecate's energy really helps, especially if you are feeling stuck too and like just really sucked into the void. Like, this is such a beautiful energy to work with, to be able to just give you some steps forward, allowing you to slowly but surely move out of it. And it's really, really important to just listen to what your inner landscape is trying to share with you. And sometimes we inevitably like avoid that, especially during these times, because sometimes there are things that we have to confront that, again, just like don't feel great, but they are necessary. I think that when you're in this in-between state as well, it's just really important to take time to really like clear your head, clear your space, really just kind of quiet the noise. So I took some time off socials, which was really beautiful, and honestly could probably just do that more. But it was really nice to just be in my own energy, but that also allowed a lot to come up. Like, I really went through a moment there around the holidays that was hard, really hard. And here I am living to tell the tale, but sometimes we need that again. Alrighty, you guys, I think that is it for Hecate. I'm excited to hear what you guys think, or to see if you are feeling connected to her in this energy. I know I mentioned the spiral path and the practice with Hecate in there, and then in the last episode, I kind of went into detail about January and what we have been up to in the spiral path in January, but it truly has been all around sinking into our own energy and like really building that foundation, because again, we're still in the year of the snake right now, and that changes to the horse in mid-February, and we're still in that shedding phase. But once we hit the year of the horse, like, things are going to begin to gain momentum significantly. Like, I think I've probably said this a million times, but like I really do feel that forward movement for this year, and it's really exciting. But if we do not have a good foundation, if we do not have a steady foundation to hold that momentum, like, we're going to crash and burn. And so that is what we're doing in January in the spiral path, is really building that foundation. Even in February too, like, we're going to continue taking it into February, but building that foundation, being in our own energy, like really a lot of self-assurance, self-adoration, really balancing our masculine and feminine energies, having that masculine containment within us to hold our feminine, and just a lot, you guys, a lot. It really is such a beautiful online community, a beautiful space to be in, and you can get 7 days free to test it out and just see if it's something that is a good fit for you. But I would love, love, love to have you in there if you are feeling called to that. I'll link the sign up in the show notes so you can try it for 7 days free. And then, of course, always reach out to me if you have any questions. But yeah, if you're looking for sisterhood and community and just a place to really grow and expand, but also just work with your own inner seasons, the outer seasons, and just like the cycles of life that we are moving through, it's a really beautiful space. Alrighty, you guys, I think that is it. Thank you again for being here. Again, like, share, subscribe, comment, all the things. Let me know what resonates. Let me know how this landed for you guys, and I'll see you next time.